Okay, can everyone hear me? Is that thumbs up? Yep, brilliant. Okay. So yeah, thanks for the introduction. So my name's Tom Szirtes. I am the founder of Mbryonic, and we are a studio based here in East London, and we develop immersive tech content for VR, AR, MR applications, and our clients come from around the world, from different sectors, and typically our technology is used in events, marketing spaces, but sometimes online. We do stuff for galleries and trade shows, so that's why I'm here. In essence, what we kind of say that we do is, is that we create innovative ways for organizations to engage audiences using immersive technologies. And the question is really, well, what do I mean by immersive technologies? Because there's a range of devices out there that essentially what they're doing is blurring the line between the physical and virtual worlds to create a sense of immersion. And not only do these devices provide a way for you to feel immersed in content, but they also let you interact with content in a new way. And if we look at the different types of devices, they kind of range from on one side, you've obviously got mobile phones that can do augmented reality now. So there's something like 800 million mobile phones have AR capabilities, and that's expected to project to about 2 billion by 2022. So these kind of things are like Facebook filters, special applications where you can look at something and it projects a 3D model into your space. On the other hand, we have virtual technology, which is virtual reality headsets. For instance, there's the Oculus Rift, which has been out for a couple of years. These are devices that plug into a PC laptop, and when you put on the headset, you're completely immersed in the virtual world. And then, interestingly, we've now got all-in-one portable devices. The Oculus Go came out spring this year. And that's really nice. It's £200. So when you're talking about budget, that's suddenly a lot more affordable, at least for the hardware. And it's easy transportable, and it's a really nice experience. You can even wear it with glasses, like me. And then in the middle, we get these new range of devices. They're called mixed reality devices. They're essentially a bit like augmented reality on a mobile phone, but you wear them on your head, so you've got your hands free. And because you're looking around, you feel a lot more immersed. The computer graphics surrounds more of your vision, and you can actually interact with that content using hand gestures. It understands surfaces, so you could have, for instance, characters walking on top of a table, jumping off it. But these devices are, I would say, quite still prototyping at this stage. These typically like £2,000-3,000 for one of these devices to buy. You can, of course, rent them. And the quality is still a little bit. I mean, they've got a wow factor, but there's still a bit of a place to go before they really become a mainstream device. Essentially, what all these devices are doing is the days of tapping at your digital world that's trapped behind a screen, I believe, are numbered. It's been the mode for the last 10 years that we interact with content through screens, either tapping them or with a mouse and pointer. But these technologies mean that content breaks beyond the screen, allows us to enter into digital worlds, or allows the digital world to come around us, and it allows us more intuitive, interactive ways of being able to interact with content and each other. And it's really a question of when, not rather than if. But obviously I'm biased because I work in industry, but that's really what I believe. So I'm going to talk about this particularly in the event space, because obviously this is an event. So there's a number of challenges, obviously, when you run an event that you have to deal with. I mean, numerous challenges, but the ones I'm going to be focusing on particularly here is, number one, how do I attract people to my stand? For instance, at this event, there are lots of stands there, and no one's going to visit every single one of them. So you're going to be quite selective, and you're going to want people to come to your stand. So how can you attract them? Then once you have them there, how can you communicate what you want to tell them in a very short amount of time in the most engaging way possible? And that can be quite difficult as well, especially if you have a complex product or service. And then lastly, the other challenge is like you've talked to them, and now you want them to retain that information, either so they come back if you're doing an entertainment event, they want to come back next year, or you want them to then produce some kind of call to action that's going to result in a sale. So you want them to remember that experience. And this is how these technologies can actually address that. Number one, you can call it what you like, innovative or novel, hopefully not a gimmick, but these technologies are new. By the time your audience have come to your event, they've probably already watched 10 videos on their mobile phone, watched TV. There's nothing new. It's quite hard to really make a splash with a video or existing content. Whereas these devices, they're still quite new to a lot of people. Obviously, can I show hands of how many? Has anyone here not used a VR headset? So there's a couple of you. But obviously, we have a biased audience here. But still, actually, the adoption is pretty low in terms of VR. So you immediately have a differentiating factor that you can bring to your stand or your trade show that people are genuinely interested in. We'll have one example, which I'll talk about later, where they've been trying to engage school kids, and this makes a big difference. The second one is very engaging. When you put on a headset, you're interacting with content, and you're immediately, it's a very visceral experience that engages your emotions. It's not just your sight. Your brain tricks you into believing you're actually somewhere else when you have a VR headset on. And so you've got a very engaging way of then being able to communicate with people. Also because actually they're completely immersed in your content. They're not being distracted by lots of other things happening around them. They're in your world. They're in control. And they can interact with your content. So it's very engaging. And lastly, it's very memorable. Research has shown that people retain information about 4 times as well in virtual reality than they do through traditional learning mechanisms like video and books. And that could be down. We don't exactly know the reason for that, but one of the theories is that the brain has evolved to remember things based on locations, because that's very useful to know that there's a saber-toothed tiger is going to be sitting behind that rock. And so we instinctively remember things based on locations, and virtual reality is, when you put on a headset, you are in a location. So I'm going to show you some case studies that I think are quite useful. Ultimately, I like to break these kind of experiences into 4 types. So I'm going to kind of attempt to categorize them, and of course, any categorization is always flawed, but I'm going to do my very best. The first category I like to call like the age of experience. This is experiential marketing, where you are a brand or a company, and you're not really wanting to tell them about a specific product details, but you want to associate an experience with your brand that someone's really going to remember. And this is kind of a way that marketing is going. Studies show that 86% of customers rather pay for an experience than a product. And if you look at the way that brands talk about their products, they talk about the experiences come with them, not so much about comparative features. So Nike, for instance, they don't talk necessarily about shoes, they talk about the feelings of power. Coke, not about the taste, but sharing moments with friends. And so these case studies I've selected are really just about creating a feeling with your customer. This one's by Merrill, and this goes back quite a long while. So Merrill create outdoor shoes and other outdoor wear, and what they did is that they created a kind of a virtual tour through a rocky terrain where you had to cross a bridge, and they did a 4D experience. So the users are wearing the headset. They have to walk across a real wooden bridge, but it's of course completely safe, only about a few centimeters off the ground. They use vibrations and sounds and wind blowers to give a sensation. They ask people to walk across this bridge, and then in doing so, the whole thing's moving. They're very exhilarated. Looking down, there's a giant chasm below them, and when they get to the other side, a big rockfall comes. And this is just a way for them to really give across the experience of what it is, the excitement that comes with outdoor living and their brand. Again, not really talking about their shoes, they're talking about their brand. Red Bull, another one here. So Red Bull we associate with exciting sports, and they've got their famous air race that they do each year. And what they allowed then did at their events was they did a film and games which put you in a first-person perspective of one of their pilots in one of their aircraft. And again, that's just another way. If you're in that aircraft, that's a much more powerful experience than watching a screen with airplanes going around a course. So again, they could really communicate around their brand values. Here's an interesting one that we actually did ourselves. So this is a shoe polish brand. That's a very exciting thing here. Then they wanted to do something around the World Cup. So we created an interactive experience based on essentially role-playing being in the final of the World Cup, where you're the goalkeeper and you have to save penalties from a penalty shootout. You start off in the locker room where you get to pick up their product and interact, virtually spraying it around onto your boots. Then you come out through the tunnel and you're there with the lights blazing, and you use your hands to try and save a ball. And at the end of the experience, if you're successful, you get to hold a trophy and a giant fireworks display. And that's all about just fun, engagement, putting the customer as a hero, as we call it. This is an augmented reality experience. This is actually a music event. It's Coachella last year, and it's Eminem performance. And I don't know if you can tell from here. So there's Eminem's performing down here, but they used the fact that people watch concerts through their phone and added an augmented reality layer on top. So essentially the stage show got extended beyond the confines of the stage and up into the space around them at 360. And that's quite clever, because what they're doing is kind of already using a behavior that people have, which is very annoying, of watching a concert through their mobile phone, but actually turning it into something interesting. And in doing so, Eminem and Coachella are showing that actually Coachella is the most exciting music festival that you can go to. Right. My next category is around storytelling. This is where you're trying to communicate something more complex about your product or service using this kind of medium. This is a project we actually did. This is kind of like, this is for the logistics industry. So in the Southeast, the logistics industry is one of the biggest employers. And the problem they have is they haven't got enough people to come and work in their industry. So we worked with Essex County Council to create an experience to engage young people and job seekers and tell them what is logistics, what are the career opportunities available in logistics, and tell them a bit more about this space, which not many people really think about. So what we created was an application that goes out to job fairs, to schools, and to events, and the students can put on the headset, and within 6 minutes, we tell the story of a consumer good that they might like, a mobile phone, from a factory in Asia, going all the way across the sea, into a port, through warehouses, and in doing so, they really get a sense of where their everyday products come from and how they, and the kind of jobs available. And not only that, it's an interactive thing, so they actually get to perform different tasks within those jobs, which makes it fun and engaging. And that's been tremendously successful, because if you go in front of a bunch of school kids and say the word logistics, most of them are going to get their phone out. But if you come there with a VR headset, they're all going to put it on and have fun and learn about your messaging within the 5-6 minutes. So this is very successful, and there's actually the Department of Work and Pensions actually pointed this out as a best-in-case example, and they're going to roll it out in more sectors. This is sort of a bit of work we did for a company called ClearScore. They're a financial services company. They do credit score reports and also provide advice. They used augmented reality to tell a story at one of their annual conferences, and their audience in that case are their employees, their investors, and their partners. And what they want to do is show how this technology can be used to tell a story around a typical customer persona. In this case, it was Mark. And Mark wants to save up for a mortgage, but he's spending too much. So they set up a table, and on this table, they had various objects that related to Mark's life. Wallets, receipts, coffee cups. And by using the phone, the delegates could go around and just scan the objects. And when they scan the objects in augmented reality, they would see more detail about that spending behavior, and then it would suggest types of products and services that could help Mark save up his money. And it's just, within 5 minutes, you've told an interesting story interactively to your audience. And going back to ports, this is something we did for DP World. They run London Gateway, which is Europe's fastest growing port, just outside London. And they wanted to have something for their trade show, Logistica, in Munich. And they asked us to create an experience to basically sell to retail and CEOs about why they should run their product through this port. And again, we took a story, we followed a container into the port, and we created this 3D representation with 3 different points of view. So we have this kind of God view, which is like you're putting on a headset and you're looking at a living, breathing model of a port that we built in computer graphics. Then you could zoom into particular places and look at the port from the ground. So you're looking around and suddenly you're standing on the quay or you're standing in the warehouse. And then we had this God view, which zooms back, and now you're floating in space, and you can see that all the way that this port is strategically connected to all the major other shipping routes in the country and around the world. So again, 5-6 minute experience. Audience is very different. This time it's not kids, it's executives, but we're using the same kind of storytelling mechanisms to do that. And again, similarly, here's another example that we did for a medical company. ResMed, they sell devices for sleep apnea. And this was actually a very short experience we created, a 2-3 minute experience that they used to motivate their own staff, sales staff, to tell them about their new product, which was a portable device that people could take with them. And in this particular case, we tell the story of a typical customer who has sleep apnea but wants to go on holiday. So now, before sleep apnea devices were big, respiratory devices were big, bulky things. Now they're small. So you can see the size, how it fits into the suitcase. You're then on the airplane and you've woken up off a long-haul flight and you've actually had a good night's sleep because you've got the device with you. And then you end up at your hotel. You can check on the mobile phone, what your sleeping patterns are. And again, just 2-3 minutes, we've got a really engaging way of putting the person in the position of their customer. The next category is I call traveling without moving. This is where you're at an event, but you want to actually really take them somewhere else. So here's an experience with a partner company called Vismedia, and they worked with Dulux to create. Dulux the paint company, have a big academy where you can learn about paint and all its many facets and the techniques. And this is a 360 virtual tour of the space that you can go on, and you can explore the different parts of the academy and learn about what they do. The interesting thing about this is it's all done with photography and film. They used it at their events, but also it can be used online because this content can be adapted just within a browser. Obviously, it's less immersive, but you've got the 2 ways of being able to deploy this content. This is a campaign for Petron, which is a tequila company, and they want to talk about the provenance of their farms and their processes. So they did a 360 tour, which follows a journey from their farm in South America, going through their factory, and then coming up to the end product. Again, they did it in 360, so it's really immersive. You feel like you're there, and it's just a new engaging way of being able to tell a story about their product. Marriott did a campaign a while back using virtual reality. They deployed these kind of transporter zones, and when they asked people to step into them, they would take them to 3 different locations. One would be London, and you'll be up in one of their Hilton suites in London. Put another one, and you're on the beach. I can't remember what the third location was in this particular example. But again, they've kind of got this installation, they've got a customer in there, they feel like they're there, they're using heat and air to really amplify the experience. So this is all about taking people somewhere else at your event. And then the last category is the virtual showroom, where you're kind of extending your space. If your exhibition, space is expensive. How can you extend that? Well, for instance, car manufacturers, Jaguar in this case, you can allow people to sit in a virtual car and then customize it, learn about that car, learn about all the features of that car in a really engaging way, be able to inspect all the detail. So you don't have to have every single version of your car at your event. You can just have a virtual one. This is a cool one by Apple. So this is Apple Campus they built, and you have a normal architectural model that then comes to life when viewed through an iPad using augmented reality, and it allows the user to be in control of their own experience, being able to see, for instance, the different energy flows, how the site uses energy, power, transport, how it transforms from day to night. And each user has a unique, they can go at their own pace and take their own use away from it in a very engaging way that would be hard to do in other ways. L'Oreal, for instance, they are now using augmented reality to virtually try on makeup. Obviously, that's quite useful at a booth if you, because it takes a long time to put makeup on, and people are reticent to do that. But if you can do that virtually, really simply, then you can try different looks, and you're much closer to a sale. And then the last example here is Ikea, and Ikea have been using augmented reality to see what your furniture looks like within actually your own home. So you scan the catalogue, you use the phone, you look around in your living room, you get a 3D model for the furniture item, you can place it in, and then you can order. And that lets you imagine how much closer the visualization step is for you to go then to the sale. And of course, you can use this in a number of different other ways. So my tips for virtual reality and augmented reality: it is novel. Don't make it a gimmick. So I've seen stands where people just put on a VR headset and they put on a game, and people are in there playing a game. It has nothing to do with their company, nothing to do with their brand. So people will remember the game, but they won't remember you. Try and make it integrated. If you can get it involved earlier in your design cycle, it's much more powerful if it ties into your staging, if it's basically you've got a pre and a post communication strategy around it, you're going to get more bang for your buck. Understand the medium. It is a new medium, and it has very different rules. In the early days, I had people saying, hey, can we have a virtual training room? And you're in the virtual training room, and we want you to look at PowerPoints and PDFs in this training room. And it's like, well, that's not the point of VR. VR or AR, you want to create new types of experience, not replicate old ones. And last tip is partner with experts. There's a lot of great companies who've been doing this for quite a number of years. And because it is new and because it is different, you can get in a lot of pain points if you're not working with people who know it, and sometimes they might end up calling us to fix it, which has just happened this week. So other considerations very quickly. The main problems: scalability. Obviously, it's a one-to-one experience, so scalability is an issue. How do you have hundreds of headsets or one? You've got to think about staffing levels. You've got to think about batteries, if they're ported mobile systems, and hygiene, and of course security. If scalability is really an issue for you, then there are big projection environments that you can do. We work with other companies to create content for their system. It's not entirely, they call it shared VR, but it's actually a nice way of being able to just scale it up. And I think maximizing value, if you want to get a bit more bang for your buck, it's always fun to watch people take videos of people going through these experiences. So reaction videos are great. They can be shared online, social media. Content, you can, if you've got an interactive content, you can actually capture that now in 360 video format and put that on Facebook, Vimeo, YouTube, so people have a kind of, it's not the full experience, but people can kind of get a sense of what you've done in the VR outside of it. And lastly, think about reusable content. A lot of the work that you do in creating VR is around making 3D models, storytelling, narrative, sound, audio. That can all be adapted, again, for a different format. So it could be useful as a desktop application or built for a browser experience if you're thinking about that ahead of time. And that's it. Welcome to a bright new future. We're not there yet. Maybe one day we'll all be having this conference in VR, but until then, any questions?
Okay, thank you very much, Tom. I have one question here from the audience, which is on the screen for you.
I have to find that data for you. It said traditional IRL mechanism, so I don't know if that was just video or if that was other formats as well, so I don't know the question. Reaction videos. Isn't this one of the reasons there's a hesitation to use VR headsets at exhibitions? Maybe, yeah. I've never thought about that. It's quite possibly. I mean, it's going to attract some people and it's going to put something off. Obviously, if you're going to film someone, you need to have their permission. So don't do it without their permission.
Well, thank you very much. I think we have one last question for a poll to see. If you're in Slido, to answer our last question, which is now, will you now be using VR, AR for your events? Essentially, oh.
Maybe, definitely. No. Oh. Oops. Wow, I must have done a good job then. Okay.
That looks pretty positive to me.
Great.
Well, join me in giving a round of applause to Tom. Thank you very much for a great session.